Welcome to Cat the Minion YouTube channel. My name is Teresa, but you can call me Cat. This is going to be an Adventures with Plastic Crack video, and I'm talking about Ken and Steven and any other male friend dolls, because there aren't really that many in the Barbie line. So what you're seeing on the camera here right now is a Ken doll from somewhere in the range of 1962 to 1967. We're just going to assume that it's 62. Because it has a molded on hairline. And you can see it up here. So this doll came like this. I can't remember if he came with a case or not. I was waiting around on eBay for a while, and I finally decided I could afford him. And I wanted this because he looks like Ringo to me. Somebody at some point has used some kind of marker paint or Sharpie or something on him. Presumably in the 60s, right? Because they went from that clean cut, and then somebody clearly a fan of the late 60s styling here. So he's in progress. You can see that I've got an ensemble going here that I'm still working on because I need to get more supplies for it. But this is the 1962 version of Ken. The 1961 version did not have this molded hairline on here. It had this like fluffy flocking glued on. And I used to have a 1961 Ken who had like a bum arm, and I got rid of him when my collection imploded, and I kind of wish I still had him because he was my mom's when she was little, but you know, things happen. People have nervous breakdowns and they make weird decisions. So instead of that Ken, I still have, you know, an early 60s Ken with the same face, but now he's in a slightly different version. So again, I don't have a reproduction or a 1961 Ken, but I have this possibly 62, but it really anywhere between 62 and 67. This is a straight leg Ken. It's not a bend leg one. So it kind of narrows the field a little bit. But this is, you can see, I mean, if you'd have to sort of erase out the handlebar mustache there, but, and the sideburns, but this is original Ken. He was available in blonde, and I don't think I've ever seen a red-headed Ken before. No, I'm lying. They made one in the Fashionistas line finally a couple years ago. They did have Alan, Ken's friend, in 1964 who had red hair, and I don't have any Allens anymore. I had one from 2002, and I got rid of him. Or, well, first of all, I completely redid 2 Allens from 2002, and then I got rid of them. So I don't have any versions of Allen. I do want to get either a 1964 one or one of the reproductions, because I do want an Allen. And I don't have any, oh man. I used to have some of the Kens from the 90s and early 2000s that had versions of the Allen head mold from 1992, but I don't have them anymore. So the first major change to Ken didn't really come until 1968. And I think it was used on Talking Ken, because there wasn't really a twist and turn Ken. But I like 1970 Ben Like Ken had this face. So this is the 1968. It's like Mod Ken. This was available in the 70s in blonde, particularly in Malibu Ken and various sporting sets. The original head mold for this, the prototype, had this exact face, and it didn't have the molded on hair. It had rooted blonde hair. And they didn't use that until 1973 with Mod Hair Ken. And then there was like a Montgomery Ward Ken. And then there were a couple of reproduction and special edition Kens right around 2009, 2010 that they used this face for. with rooted hair. And they made a black set too. So he would have been like sort of co-evil with Twist and Turn Barbie. The Twist and Turn Barbie face. This is 1972 Busy Ken. He is the bee's knees. Look at this. So he's got these arms, and they have a bendable joint in them, a clickable joint, like his legs. And his arms go up and down. And he's got opposable thumbs. And he has a wrist joint. So when you pull his hand back, like when you push his wrist down, his thumb opens, and then when you pull it up, it closes. So he can hold on to stuff. And usually I just have him holding on to this MP3 player over here. But he came with accessories. This isn't his original outfit. I've redressed him. He came with like jeans and a tank top. And when I got him, he had his original clothes and they were worn and the whole thing smelled like cigarettes. So I fixed him up. Cleaned him up and got him some fresh clothes. So I love Busy Ken. He's hot. He's hot. And even Malibu Ken with the blonde hair has really dark eyebrows. And they were using this for Ken throughout the 70s. Until Superstar Ken came out. And then they changed Ken. I don't have a Superstar Ken, though. I wish I did. Superstar Ken had a neck knob like Barbie. So his head... I don't really have one like that. His head had like... The neck would have been arched kind of like this at the top. And then the head would have swiveled around on top of it. And there's a lot of Kens in the 80s, late 70s, 80s. Their head vinyl shrinks over time, so then the head is just sort of bobbling around on this neck knob that looks too big, and it's kind of unfortunate. So the next change to Ken was 1983 with Suns... Or is it 1981? No, 83. Yeah, 83. Sensational Malibu. So, and I should backtrack too because there's some other stuff going on. So let's stick a pin in Sensational Malibu because they sort of spread out at that point. So I'm just gonna put this here. In 1968, put him back here for a minute. There was a lot more diversity coming out with Barbie. So, and I don't think Christy came out, and then I don't think her boyfriend came out until 1970. So when they had the 1970 Twist and Turn Ken, they would have this guy, and then they had Brad, who had the same body but had a specially designed African-American face. And I think they only made 2 of him. There was Brad, and then there was Free Moving Curtis in 1974. Same exact doll, like same face paint and everything, just different names. And that was kind of it for a while for people of color in the Ken and male friends line that I'm aware of. And then in 1981, they came out with the Sensational Malibu. First editions. So Christy had the Steffi head mold, and Ken had this face in blonde. And then they had Black Ken, which was like the first, it might have been the first Black Ken, but I'm not sure. Because Black Barbie came out in 1980, and then 1981 they had Black Sensational Malibu Ken, who had the Brad face with rooted hair, like curly rooted hair. And then in 1983, they ran the Sensational Malibu line again, but they changed Christie's head mold from the Steffi head mold to the Hispanic head mold, and they changed Black Ken to a new face that had a helmet shaped hair that was similar to this, but was a molded on afro that was like a little big, like out to here. It was not the same face as Curtis, but I don't have either one of those. They had a family set in the 80s called the Hart family, and the Mr. Hart and the Black sets had the sensational 1983 Ken. So most of them that I had a few of them in the 80s, and all of my Kens were blonde. This is one that I got in November of last year. Somebody gave me that. I believe this is Great Shape Ken from 1983. So he has dark hair. There were a couple of like medium toned browns in the 80s that weren't like a rich brown like this, but kind of like a grayish chalky brown. But there was this dark brunette. I don't think any of them had like actual black hair. So the original Ken, let me go back here too, because I'm getting ahead of myself. The original Ken here, his head has just a little bit of neck at the top, and then it swivels back and forth, just like original Barbie did. It swivels on top of a rather large, like a larger diameter neck, because he's a dude. Just a swivel. I mean, not a swivel, just a turning back and forth. And Busy Ken, the 1968 style Ken. If I can get him, he's shorter, I gotta put him back down. He has the same style of neck, so it just turns from side to side. Now, I never had any Kens with the Superstar arms, so let me just... this body does have Superstar Ken arms, and I'm going to show that in a minute. So this Ken body you would have seen in 1977, and really only like special set Kens, like real fancy ones, like Perfume Giving Ken and Superstar Ken, and a couple other really expensive fancy Kens would have had these kind of arms in the 80s. Most of them had these cheap flat arms like this, just sort of PTR, palms to the rear, beach arms. Somebody's cat chewed that. I used to have a Beach Blast Ken with dog teeth marks in his leg, looked like he got eaten by a shark. But I don't have him anymore, and I wish I did. I'm gonna have to replace him. So I did mention that Superstar Ken did have a swivel head. Right, he had a neck knob like Superstar Barbie and a fully swivel head. This 1983 Ken does not. He has a basic body. His head rotates from side to side. That's it. His arms only go up and down, and they're straight arms with the hands. Just can't really do much with them. But he did have clickable legs, and he could sit down. And really Ken, for the most part, is just an accessory for Barbie anyway. So he doesn't, I guess they didn't assume that he didn't need much articulation. But he has about as much articulation as a bendable Ken from 1965. So it's fine. So he's not in his original outfit. He's in this Jewel Secrets Ken ensemble in 1991 Allen's vest. So the reason I'm going over this is because there are some changes later in the 80s to the way that the head moves. So this is just swivel matching circles there. In 1983, they came out with, so not only did they have Black Barbie, or Christie, I think it was still called Christie in 83, for the sensational, they had Hispanic Barbie too. So they had Barbie, they had white Barbie, I think it was still Christie, and then they had Hispanic Barbie, and then they had PJ and Skipper and Ken and Black Ken, and then in 83 they added a Hispanic Ken who looked almost like this, but his hair had like a little bit more exterior texture and knobbiness, and his jaw was a little bit broader, I believe. His hair wasn't quite as helmety down in the front. I don't have any of him. They only made 2 of them, I think. They had his, the sensational Hispanic Ken in 1983, and then in 1984 they had Hawaiian Ken. So those are kind of rare and hard to find, and I don't have one. But again, they're going to look pretty similar to this. And most of them were blonde. Most of the ones that I had were in that time were blonde, and they would look more like this. This one is not the same though, and I'll show him in a minute. So mine all had like bright yellow, like this same bright yellow hair color here, and then it just the texture swirls around and goes back on the down on the back of the head. Busy Ken's hair kind of similar. All right, where am I going with this? Okay. So they had that plastic, fairly wide. Again, the Black Ken's afro would have been out to about here. He had a real round hairstyle, which was popular in the 80s. If you watch the Police Academy movies, you'll see that kind of hair. Let's see, what am I doing next? Who's next? Okay, so in 1989, they had 30th anniversary Superstar Barbie and Superstar Ken, and they changed this face a little bit, this sensational Ken face for the white doll. And they came out with 3 different versions of it, which is, I think it was 3 different versions, because one of the Superstar Kens had this in light brown, and another version of Superstar Ken had this in light brown. So the 1988, is it dated 88? I think it says 88 on here. Yeah, the back of his head says 88, but usually the dates on the moldings and boxes are a year before they come out. So this is almost the same hair. I'm gonna adjust this again somehow. Come on, cooperate. Nope. Okay. This is almost exactly the same hair. It's a little bit shorter. Like his head dome isn't as tall. It's the same nose and smile and the same angle. Come on. The same angle of the hair. The sides are different to accommodate like a slightly shorter dome here. Just compare. They're almost the same. It's just cut a little differently. It's supposed to be just like a little bit fresher and a little bit shorter than this like speeding bullet swirl. It's lifted up a little bit. We can see a little bit more of his forehead. So this version of the 1988 sensational Malibu face has the same swivel, and you can see his head is a little bit smaller than the neck base, and it could be because it's shrunken over time, or that this whole mold is a little bit smaller. Now, another thing they did is there was a version of this that was even a little bit smaller than this. So the third version, again with light brown hair, not blonde like this, this is Sun Sensation Ken from 1992. Another thing they did is they took this body from Superstar Ken in the 70s with these bent arms like Barbie. And they did this thing where they made a neck knob that went into the neck and swirled around instead of coming up and then having the attachment be underneath the head. Now this one is loosely based on that. This is actually this exact mold, and you can see that it's a little bit smaller. And what they did is they had this with this neck style in this same molded hair version, but it was just a little bit smaller like this guy to accommodate the fact that it's going into the body. So this weird like inverted neck knob version of this that's a little bit smaller was also sold in Superstar Ken in brown hair in 1989, and then he was used for, I think, Benetton Ken and both versions, and Ski Fun Ken and Western Ken and All American Ken. So this version is from 1992. It's that same exact smaller version of that 1988, but now it's got rooted hair, and this is totally hair Ken. But there is a second version of Totally Hair Ken, which is really similar, but somehow different. And I believe, well, I was going to say, I feel like this is like Military Ken, but I don't have a Military Ken to compare. Military Ken came out in 1981. I think this is different, though. This is a little bit like they took a Jewel Secrets Ken and modified it. And I'm not quite sure where it came from, but it's a slightly different. So there's actually two different versions of 1992 Totally Hair Ken, and as you can see, I have both of them. And he has this weird neck knob, too. So there they are. I don't know how long they used this for, because when they started doing Kens with swivel heads again in like, I want to say around 2010, they were doing it differently. So in both this 1989 edition and in the 77 one, there was either the neck going into the head or the head going into the neck. Again, there's just like a little bit of a gap there, and you can see when you look at it that it's rounded at the end. So this one gives sort of a natural neck length. Some of the Superstar Ken bodies with the Superstar Ken head, the neck looks way too long, and some of that might just be because the necks have shrunk. But I am going to go back for a second, and we're going to look at Steven. Because Steven came out in 1987 with the Island Fun set, just like Christy. So they brought Christy back, and they made a slightly new Ken face. It's different than the 1983 sensational Black Ken face. This one he's more relaxed. And he actually kind of looks a little bit more like the original Ken face than he looks like any of the other previous people of color Ken faces. So this is Steven, and when he appeared in the late 80s as Black Ken, he had a little painted on mustache, which is really cool, and I wish I had one, but I don't, and I need to get one. And this Steven face appeared in, I want to say, like, he might have been Mr. Hart in 1989, but if not, he was definitely in like 1990 and 91. So this is Steven, and he essentially appeared only in beach sets under his real name for like 10 years. And then or at least actually until they stopped naming the beach dolls. So like 20 years Steven was in the beach sets only, and he's harder to find. And here is the 1992 Sun Sensation Steven. I think he's the first one I had. I think he's the only one I have. And I used to always want Steven, and he would never be in the stores. Because, I mean, male dolls were rare, and then you put on top of that any black dolls were like 1-2 a case if you're lucky. So here's Steven, and he almost always has orange eyes. You can see his shorter cropped natural hair here, and he has just the swivel head. So I don't know if for the black god damn it, what's it called, Superstar Ken, if they had a little if they made a version that had a weird little like swivel neck knob like this. I don't have that. They might have, and then if they did, that would be a variation on this, but I don't have any of those. So we do have Steven. There weren't really, and then again, I'm missing all of the Kens from the mid to late 90s. There were 3 different versions of Alan. So Alan was Midge's, I'm just going to put this Ken here for now, because he was also used throughout the early 90s, at least until like 94, I want to say. So there were 3 different versions of Alan. There was one that had kind of a swirl hair like this, that was used on Secret Hearts Ken and in Rio Ken in 2002. And there was a version of Alan that had like a long hair down the back of his neck that was kind of mullety, and that was used as Ken for a long time, usually with like almost red hair or like a lighter brunette hair. And then they made a rooted version of that, which is different, even still. And then there was one that had short hair that was cut short like this, but had that was pulled back from his forehead. So there were a bunch of different versions of that same one, and I don't have any of them anymore. The shorter haired one was usually blonde though, and the other ones were usually darker haired. And the rooted ones were often almost black haired, or like just a medium brunette. So throughout the 80s, Ken from like Malibu Ken and then Superstar Ken were blonde, and then most of Ken's that I remember from the 80s were blonde, although again a few of them were brunette. And then all of the sudden in like 92, 93, it just kept oscillating back and forth, and by the turn of the millennium, Ken was mostly brunette again. And it just sort of oscillates back and forth. And again, Ken, except for like one sample that I saw in the Fashionistas line, never been redheaded before. And there have been almost no Asian Kens. I think the first one I saw was 2010 Japan Ken in the Dolls of the World series. And there's been a couple since then, and I don't think I have any yet. There's been some in the Fashionistas line for a couple of years. They've got one that has like a K-pop hairstyle and a couple of other ones. There hasn't really been any Hispanic Kens since that 1984 one until 2012 in the Fashionistas line. So in the Fashionistas line, they had Ken. And what was his original face? I don't remember. trying to think of what the Fashionistas Ken looked like. I really don't remember. But I know that in 2011, they came out with this exact face with rooted blonde hair, and that was Ken. It was like a 50th anniversary. So this would have been the Fashionistas Ken face. Again, I don't remember what the first Ken... Oh, I know what they had. They had the 2006 Ken face for the first couple of them. I don't have one of those. Just like I don't have the 2006 Barbie either. I don't have any of those. So in 2011, they changed it from the 2006 Ken to the new Fashionistas 50th anniversary Ken. And I don't have one of those, but it would have looked like this. The facial features would have been painted overly huge, and it would have had rooted blonde hair. And it has this neck, which is made on this base, but then the head is like a little bit oversized, and it has a knob up here, but then it has a large neck piece that comes down, so it kind of sits on top of it in this weird angle that makes his neck look too long and his head is a little too big. And it's kind of weird looking. And then they made a different face, which I don't have, that was a brunette man who was generally assumed to be Latino, and his name was Ryan. And his face was a little bit thinner, his jaw was a little more square, and like his nose was thinner, and he had darker eyes, and he was brunette. And in 2014, they gave him a crew cut, and I don't have one of those. So they took the rooted dolls, Rooted Fashionistas Ken, 2011, Rooted Fashionistas Ryan, 2012, and in 2014, both of those same head molds, like this one, and the Ryan one, which I don't have, they got little molded crew cuts that were kind of similar to this, but like taller. And this version, this pompadour, this is actually really nice. I gotta move him up a little bit. It's just a little bit taller. So I've got to... Come on, buddy, work with me. His shoes are falling apart, so he's not being very cooperative. Okay, so this is the 2016 pompadour version of this 2011 Fashionistas Ken face. God damn it, I keep knocking these over. So it's kind of molded on top and inside. Let's get a side part. It's really cool. I think it's probably the best that this particular face has ever looked. Well, actually, that's not true because the next one is better. So again, it has this weird, like sheath neck situation going on. Now, I have a Fashionista Ken that I believe is supposed to be Ryan because the prototype had the Ryan head mold, the 2014 Ryan head mold. And god damn it, these keep falling over. So this is, I believe, a Latin version of this exact head. And because they're not labeled, it just says Ken, but I think this is supposed to be Ryan. He just has, unusually for some reason, they gave him this version of the face instead of actually having the Ryan face. I don't know why they did that, but there's been a couple of brunette Kens, so I don't see why there couldn't be, but I'm pretty sure this is supposed to be Ryan. He had glasses, but I took them off. And you can see where he was attached in the box. They just have these giant holes in his head. I hate it when they do that. Modern packaging is craptastic. But anyway, so there's this pompadour. And in 2017, they kind of diversified Ken. I believe that's when they made curvy Ken. They made broad Ken and they made slim Ken. And they came out with a few different faces. So this... And they also changed the way they were doing the heads. So instead of having that weird, like inflated head that's sticking up over it, the neck, they've cut this same mold. I'll use the blonde one for comparison. They've cut this same mold. Come on. So that it comes in underneath the jaw. And it looks more natural on this swivel head, on the swivel neck. So it doesn't have a lot of range of motion, but it looks more natural than this weird inflated version. And you can see that it is the same face. And it might be a little bit smaller hair, but they've cut the hair differently. So every time they give him a different hairstyle, they have a different head mold. This one's from 2017. This guy's got freckles. And I have two of this one. I only brought out one for the camera, so this is a slim fashionista, but I also have Dolphin Magic Ken, which does not have freckles. So this is a newer Ken, and this is, again, they just keep recycling that fashionista's face. And it kind of looks better like this. This is about as good as it gets. I don't know if they're making this pompadour with this cut on the neck. They might be at this point. I'd have to buy and compare some of them. But again, you can see the difference between 2016 or 2015 and 2017. Well, I think this one is 2016, so they were still doing the same thing. Also in 2017, they came out with this other pompadour where it's like faded on the sides, and it's a different face entirely. There's like an Asian face that came out around this time too that I don't have. This one, when they put these faces on the broad bodies, the faces look wider because I think the neck knob is a little bigger. This came in a blonde one also. There's been a couple of different versions. I think this one's 2018. So this is a different Ken mold. And again, you can see that he looks like a person of color. And there's no name for him either, so I don't know if he's supposed to be Ryan or if he's supposed to be somebody else, because there aren't that many names for Ken's friends. Also in 2017, they came out with this man bun. His eyes are printed a little wonky. This guy looks Hawaiian to me. And then also he's got this kind of beach ensemble. So this is a broad Ken, but this is, I think 2017 this one came out. This man bun that's kind of cut underneath. A fade there. They've redone this face within the last couple years. They've taken this exact head mold with this like pulled back. They've cut off the man bun, and then they've had it coming like texture, so it looks like long hair on top that's just been swept back. So it's like jaggedy right here, and then just sweeps back to a point and doesn't have that on top. So it looked like a new face, but it's not. It's just a different version of this, and I don't have one of those, but they looked really good. It's just hard because there's like, 20 different kinds of fashionistas every year, and it's like, do I really want to spend, $100 on dolls that don't pose very well and have clothes that I'm going to have to replace anyway? So there's this face. Now, I do want to get back to Steven again, because in 1993, I guess, since that's what I'm saying. They added Jamal to the Shanny line, which is like a black fashion line for Barbie-sized dolls with their own faces and everything. So they added Jamal, and I don't think I have one of him. I think I might have, or maybe I haven't. I used to. I used to have a rooted hair version of him in a beach doll, but I don't anymore. So I did have one. So Jamal had a rounder face. He had a broader smile. His eyes were a little bit different. But he had a similar hairstyle, but it was like flatter across the forehead. But he would have been painted very similarly to Steven. And I believe around 97 or 98, they replaced this Steven head mold with Jamal, both in terms of Black Ken and in terms of actual Steven dolls. So this particular face was only used for about 10 years. And then they did make a rooted hair version of Jamal for around like the year 2000, I want to say. I should point out also that there is a version of this face that has a buzz cut, and it was used for some kind of date Ken that had wigs with, like vinyl wigs. So he had like a complete buzz cut that was just painted, like a shaved head painted yellow, and then a pink wig, a brown wig, and a bigger blonde wig, I think. I don't remember what that one's called, but it did use this fashionista face for that. That was around, what year was that? 2012 maybe. So I think this face is about 2008. This was used for one of the Barbie movie princes, or the black version of Antonio. So I don't know what movie that was because I don't care. Because I get them all mixed up because it was after my time. So this one is kind of like a cross between Jamal and Steven. And he has this similar neck style to those 2010 fashionistas where it's like a neck piece sitting above a swivel joint. Like they took the old neck from the 1976 doll and tried to make a head that would fit on it that was newer. So this, I usually call him Steven 2 because I feel like he really wants to be Steven. So they were using this for the beach lines around 2008 after this face came out. And I believe, again, that the first thing he really was in was as the black version of Antonio from that Barbie movie. Maybe the Diamond Castle, maybe Island Princess or something or other. I don't remember. But definitely in the beach line and definitely for Black Kens, you would have seen this face. I don't know if they made a rooted version of it or not, but that date Ken with the wigs, I think they used this face for it. So you can see that his hair is quite close cropped. And then I don't have Jamal, but it would have been like similar to this, but like a deeper grin, and the head just like a little bit smaller overall. So this was a 2015 water play Steven that I've redone. I haven't done his face, but I did his outfit. Michael Jackson clothes from the 80s from a different brand doll. So there is that. And then in 2010 or so, I had said that Jamal came out of the Shanny line, and then they did kind of a restructure of that, and they called it Sew and Style. In 2010, they added a guy to the line, like they added Jamal later. So they added Darren. And I don't have Darren, but I do have, if I can get this, there's something stuck to his nose. I have this fashionista that uses the same head as Darren. Actually, Darren might have been the one that they used for that other one, but they could have been either one of those. One of them they used for that doll with the wigs for the Ken. the black version. So this is a lighter skinned version of this doll, but I love his smile. He's really nice. So this is the Darren face, and they used him on a broad Ken with like blue and white stripes. That's absolutely fantastic, and I need to get him because I want him. But this one was like floral tea, fashionista Ken. Just kind of hanging out. So they are making more diverse Kens of color now. They have one that has locks. They have one that has cornrows. They have another one that I can't quite remember what it is, but I know there's a third one that I can't remember. So I don't have any of those, and I really want them. But oh, they have one that has like a high top fro, and then they have cornrows, and then they have locks. So those are new in the fashionistas line. They're different. They're exciting, and in theory, they could do a Ken that had a rooted hairstyle, but for some reason they want to use as much hard plastic as possible. But at least they're giving Ken and Steven or Darren some different hairstyles. So, because they don't name the dolls, it's sort of like choose your own name, and you can either pick one from the existing history of 60 years of Ken dolls, or you could make up your own. And I like to pick and choose from ones in the past. So that's what I have for Kens. I don't have a lot of some of the other ones. I need to get an Asian Ken. I always wanted one. I was mad that they didn't have them. And I think the only Asian Ken before that Japan Doll of the World Ken that was sort of samurai styled, the only one I can think of before then was in the Family Corners set from 1995. They had 5 little families in different ethnicities. Or was it 6? They might have had 6. They had 5 or 6 little families in different ethnicities, and they did have an Asian one. And it was 6.5 inch scale, and that's the only one that I know of before then. So it's been a long time coming, and I switched careers and cut off my steady flow of income right when those brand new Asian Kens were coming out, so I don't have any yet. But I've gotten almost all of these Kens within the last 5 years. So it kind of took a while because I was bored with Ken for a while, but and I had some other ones that I got rid of. I can think of, like, I got rid of Elvis. I got rid of Romeo from the Romeo and Juliet set. I got rid of all of my... I got rid of the blonde sensational Kens that I had. I got rid of all of the Allen Kens that I had. So there's a military Ken from 1991 that has like a really tight grin and like a kind of a hairstyle that swoops to the side that has little fronds sticking out. That was also used in the prototype image for Sparkle Eyes Barbie. So there's a lot going on with Ken, and it's hard to keep up with him while also keeping up with all the different versions of Barbie. But I mean, if you go back into it, you know, there's a lot there. And I kind of combined the Kens of color with the white Ken because there's so few of them. Right? There's a lot more versions of Black Barbie and Christy. I kind of forgot a couple when I did that video. But there's very few of Ken. There's very few different versions of Ken. And it's nice to finally see more Latin Kens. It's nice to see some Kens that look like they might be Filipino or Puerto Rican or something like that. It's nice to see Kens that are Asian. I don't know if there's any Indian Kens, like from India, but I don't think I've seen any Native American Kens. So maybe we'll be seeing some more like that. We're just some kind of Kens of color so that there's more variety, so that children can see toys that either look like them or look like their cousins or their dad or their brother or somebody like that. So we have a lot more variety in Ken in the last 5 years. I want to say it didn't really happen until 2017, so it's really mostly in the last 4 years. But they were trying with Ryan, but they kind of dropped him off as soon as they started cranking out these new versions of Fashionistas. They had a little bit of Ryan right around 2014 to 2016, and then he just kind of faded in, and everybody was labeled as Ken. So I wish they would still label the characters, because I'd like for some of these people to have names. You know, that's one thing that really irks me that they do now. That kind of didn't carry over from my childhood and irritates me. Also, the drop in quality bothers me, but that's how they get you. They finally have the diversity, and you're like, ooh, I need this one, and then you get it, and you're like, wow, this is a piece of crap, but I still want it because it's got personality and it's unique. You know? All that representation that was missing for the first 50 years. Alright, so that's what's going on with those, and again, it's easy for them to crank out different versions, like with this one, and just stamp the same face, especially now that I think they're doing the molds with computers instead of hand sculpting them like they would with this guy. So they just change one thing, and boom, they got a new one. Like clockwork. I think the red-headed Ken has this face with this hairstyle. And I think he's on a broad body, and I need to get him. I want a red-headed Ken. Alright, so that's it. If you'd like to see more adventures with Plastic Crack and or fund some purchases of different versions that are not appearing in this film, you can donate Cash App, PayPal, or Venmo. That's all Cat the Minion. My sign's in the background. I don't really feel like bringing it up into the frame. So I'll just have these guys here. If you'd like to contribute, but you also want something, I've got plenty of stuff available. I have tarot readings. I have merch and prints and actual art items. I've got coloring books, dark poetry, and some other things floating around and available. Everything is through my Linktree, linktr.ee/cattheminion, and I think that's it. It's also listed below in the description box, all that kind of information. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, comment, check out my playlists tab, my discussion tab, and stay groovy, and we'll see you later. Bye. Bye.